How my first portfolio showing almost caused me to quit. Hi, I'm Joel Grimes with the Joel Grimes Academy, and I'm going to talk to you about how my first portfolio showing almost caused me to quit. This is meant to be an inspiration for those who are out knocking on doors, chasing their dream. So in 1984-85, I graduated in 84 with a degree in photography from a fine arts University of Arizona. And then I was out trying to chase my dream, and I had to make cold calls, and eventually I got my first portfolio showing. And it was brutal making those first cold calls. I was very fortunate that I had a studio mate, Steve, friend Steve Sammons, who was a natural marketing, I would call him a marketing genius in a lot of ways. And he prompted me and sort of coached me to do this, cold calls and whatever. But I finally got my first portfolio showing. It was with an ad agency. It was with a creative director. And for purposes, we'll call him Bill. And so I was so excited. I had worked really hard on my portfolio. I had about 35 boards. In those days, we laminated them, put felt on the back, put my logo on there. I had this custom case made. So I was ready to knock the rocks off of whoever I showed it to. And so I went in, a little nervous. I pulled out my portfolio. I had on the phone mentioned that I had just graduated from college, that I had just moved from Tucson, Arizona to Denver. I was in the Denver market. And so he knew that about me. And so I show him my first board, pull out my first picture. He looks at me and says, "Do you know how many photographers in the Denver County have a business license in photography?" I said, "No." He said, "Over 2,000. That was the first thing he told me. I showed him my second board. And he said, "Why'd you move to Denver from Tucson?" I said, "Oh, because of the Rocky Mountains, the lifestyle." Got to the third, fourth board, and he said, "I've got some advice for you. Go back to Tucson. Too many photographers in Denver." And that was it. I had 35 boards. He looked at 4. I packed them up, hit the pavement. I had a lump in my throat and tears in my eyes. I was a tough kid. I was strong enough to bench over 300 pounds, but I wasn't strong enough to handle one rejection. And that drive back to the studio was brutal. And all I could think about was, I'm done, I quit. My dad was a fireman, 2 brothers were firemen, and my dad kept saying, "You'll never make it in photography. You'll never make a living in photography. Forget that dream." And all of that came back to me at that moment. So when I showed up to my friends, our studio, he could see the look on my face, and he said, "How did it go?" And I said, "I'm done, I quit, this is it, I'm packing up, I'm out." And he looked at me and he said something that I'll never forget. "You're gonna let one person steal your dream?" And I said, "Yes." And he kept repeating that. He said, "You're gonna let one person steal your dream." And I said, "I know it sounds crazy. I can't do it. This is impossible. It's brutal. I can't do it." And he said, "Why don't you give it 3 more months? Just give it 3 more months." Well, luckily I had someone there to rescue me. And so I did. And luckily, little by little, some work came in the door. Now, I had only basically architectural images in my portfolio. I was not a people photographer. So you know me as a people photographer, as a portrait photographer. But at this time, I had no portraits, only architecture stuff, and maybe some landscapes. I started out in landscapes in college. So I started to get, and I got I think a brochure at a golf course, a few things came in the door, but still I was starving, barely hanging on. And my friend Steve said something to me. He said, "You need to go back to that agency, the first rejection. You need to go back." And I remember thinking about that, and I said, "Yeah," with a brick and a note on that brick through the front window. I remember driving past that building, and literally my blood pressure and my heart would start to pound, and I'd start to get these cold sweat chills or whatever. All the emotions of that first rejection came back to me. And he said, "But you need to go back to that ad agency and find an art director, not the creative director, find an art director and show your portfolio again." And I thought about that and I said, there's some truth to that. I need to face my fears. And so I kept pitching this one art director, kept calling her. 6 weeks in a row, I called her every week, and finally she said, "Come on in." I went in that meeting, and I remember looking around thinking, am I going to see Bill, the creative director? And luckily I didn't, but I showed my portfolio, and I don't have architecture stuff. They had a huge account with one of the biggest home builders in the area. And she said, do you think it's possible for you to take a mom, dad, and 2 kids, put them on a couch in an interior and do a lifestyle shoot? And I thought, sure. She says, I'm gonna give you a chance. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to see if you can do it. We got the shoot day together. I got the talent. I didn't know much about lighting at all. I had a medium format camera, and I remember I was trying to put the Polaroid back on. We had all the family sitting there, and just about the time I was going to put that back on, guess who walks in the door? The creative director, Bill. And he says, oh, how's everything going? I look up, my heart just about fell to the ground. And I couldn't get that Polaroid back on the camera. I was shaking so bad. All those memories, all that rejection came back to me. Well, I finally got it on. I did the shoot. They loved what I did. They ended up giving me a total of 15 ads. 15 ads with people. The agency that almost stole my dream launched my people career. I worked that agency for about 10 years. I got to know all the art directors, even the creative director, Bill, got to know him very well. Turned out he was actually a nice guy. And I moved from Denver to Tucson. I spent 9-10 years in Tucson doing ad campaigns all around the world. And my career just exploded. And I went back to Denver, and I remember going and visiting the lab. I got to know a lot of the people behind the lab, so I thought I'm just going to visit them. I was standing at the lab, and guess who walks 18 years from the day I started and showed my first portfolio. 18 years later, Bill walks in the door and says, Joel, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just visiting. He says, I keep hearing incredible stories about how you're doing all these ad campaigns and whatever. You've had an amazing career as a photographer. And I said, I've got a story for you. And he said, what? I said, you were the very first portfolio showing I ever had in Denver back in 1984. And he said, I was? And I said, yeah. He goes, I don't remember. And I go, I do. And I said, you basically told me to get out of photography. And he goes, I did? I said, yeah. And I said, it was so brutal that I literally hit the pavement in tears and I wanted to quit. And he goes, I can't believe it. And I said, yeah, but I had a friend that said to me, don't let one person steal my dream. And I said, looking back on that time, you did me a favor. The most important thing that could have ever happened to Joel Grimes back in 1985 was that my very first portfolio showing was a disaster, that it brought me to the point where I wanted to quit. And I look at that and I say, why is that so important? Because here's the truth. If you enter the real world and you put yourself on the line, whether you're an actor, musician, photographer, writer, whatever it is you do, you're going to get rejected. And you better get it out of the way. You better get you're going to have to get that brutal rejection out of the way to be able to move on and chase your dream. So I got it out the first time out. And so I look back and I say, that's the best thing that could ever have happened to me, because I had to make a decision at that moment. Was I willing to be rejected and still chase my dream? And I finally said yes. Now I had someone to help me rescue me there. And it's nice to have someone to help you, encourage you on. And I'm here for you to do that. I want you to believe that you can, in fact, chase your dream. You can achieve whatever you want. So again, if you're a musician, you're an actor, whatever it is that you have in front of you, you're going to get rejected. But guess what? It's okay. And it's going to happen. It's part of life. It's the real world. 90% of all photographers graduating with a degree in photography don't end up working in their field. And I'm going to talk more about that in another video. The fact is that's the real world, because we can't handle rejection. My humanity always gets in my way. And so you'll need to learn to overcome the fact that in the real world, it's brutal, you'll be rejected, but it's okay. It's just one person's opinion. And that person that really almost stole my dream wasn't that bad of a person. Maybe he was having a bad day. They have real lives. The people that you're pitching, that photo editor or whatever it is that you're sitting in front of, they have a life too. They got issues, bosses, deadlines, struggles, maybe going through a divorce or whatever it is in their life. And you come in, you're all excited, and they give you a brush off. It's okay, because guess what? There's another day, there's another portfolio showing, and one day someone's going to say, you're amazing, and they're going to hire you, and then you have a career. So I hope this is encouraging to you. It's about my life and about the way it happened to me. I talk a lot about this in the Joel Grimes Academy. I talk about the business side, how to make a living at it. This is fun for me to be able to share that experience. Now, I don't want to tell people I got rejected to the point of tears, because I'm a macho guy, right? But that's the way it happened. And so when I share my true stories with you, that gives you hope that, you know what, it's okay when you have experiences like that too. So don't let one person steal your dream. So don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and hit that little bell, and then you can keep up with all my current content.